2 days ago, we talked about developing kindness as the foundation of our practice and the foundation of our training. On the Abbey website, there's a list of Dharma principles upon which the Abbey was founded that I like to draw our attention to often. And coupled with kindness, gratitude. We talked about gratitude being the foundation for kindness. If we think about the kindness of others, then gratitude arises, and then love arises, and so forth. So coupled with gratitude on that list of qualities comes respect, gratitude and respect. So it made me think about Venerable Hui Min's teaching for us, which I've been thinking about a bit, how he has talked about having respect in every moment, respect for every moment, for every person, for everything, for every situation. And how I believe in our training, one of the things that we begin with is developing respect for our teacher. So I had an opportunity to talk to a lot of monastics in the last few months, and I met a nun who just filled my ear with all the things that were wrong with the monastery where she was living, and all the things that were not right about the person who was the director of that monastery. All of her faults, all of the things that were making things difficult for this person. This person had been ordained, I think, about a year. Right? The teacher had been ordained, I think, about 30 years. And it left me not with any bad impression about the monastery, and not even really a bad impression about the student, but more a question, who will help this nun? And actually, who can help this nun? You know, she has a lama somewhere else, but who in that moment of guiding, how do we learn respect if we don't learn it from someone who will point out our faults? So, when our teacher comes to speak to us, put our hands together and stand aside when she walks by. This is training. When we take our teacher's questions, suggestions, and admonitions with receptivity, this is training. When we develop respect and gratitude for the teacher by thinking of her good qualities and kindness in teaching, while forcibly restraining the mind that seeks faults, this is training. So Lama Tsongkhapa tells us, for the kind and venerable spiritual mentor is the root of all good qualities, which is totally the truth. And of course, that's where we get the Dharma. But here's the rub. This is the hard part. It is our teacher's job, our teacher's responsibility to point out our faults. It is our teacher's job to point out our faults. If our teacher only gives us the praise and the love and the adulation and the adoration that we all crave, how is that helping us? We have had plenty of people in our life who've given us this for a little while. And where does it get us? It does nothing but feed the very ego-grasping, self-cherishing mind that presumably we come to the monastery to overcome. And I don't know, over the years as I've thought about this, I think the courage that it takes to take on the role of teacher, to have the job to point out people's faults, is astonishing to me. It's not so pleasant, I can see that. There's a quote. So one of our textbooks I want to point out, read the section on relying on a spiritual mentor by J. Rinpoche. But he does quote Geshe Potowa, who says, "Whenever a new student comes, my burden grows. When a student leaves, my burden decreases." So think about that, actually, in terms of this. So we learn we're not so good at learning respect, actually. We're not so good at that. So it may seem kind of false and phony. We stand when the teacher comes. What's that about? We try to be not rush by her on the stairs or knock her over when we walk by. What's that about? But if we do in a physical way, if we follow these guidelines about respect, then we actually begin to train our mind in that way. Do you understand what I mean? Like if we bow and put our hands together, we remember to stand up. We remember to make it that our seat is lower, that we don't get in the most obvious position, the most honorable position in the circle, but actually reserve that for the teacher. This is a mind training for us. The teacher doesn't need that. This is for us. And over time, too, as we train, then we develop greater and greater trust in our teachers. And the more we do that, the more the teacher can help us. So if we are constantly and consistently resistant, then we can't hear the teacher's advice and guidance. And after a while, although our teachers never give up on us, they don't always tell us everything we need to hear if we haven't been so receptive in the past. So the more we separate ourselves from the teacher, the more we separate ourselves from the Buddha. And the more we separate ourselves from being open to hear what we came to train for, the less training we get. And so we are only defeating ourselves in that way. So, yesterday we talked about these four. I just ran through them quickly, but I want to come back to them again because they're the most critical. When someone criticizes our work, and we remember to listen with an open mind and bow to that person and say thank you, this is training. When someone criticizes our work and we are defensive but afterwards regret our words, this is training. When we apprehend it as criticism, so when someone criticizes our work, we are defensive or outright angry, and then afterwards we realize the criticism was a result of our own past actions, that is training. When someone criticizes our work, or we think they've criticized our work, we're defensive, outright angry, and then afterwards we regret it. We apply an antidote. We apologize to that person, whether their criticism was warranted or not. That is training. This is the textbook. There's lots and lots and lots of ways to work with different types of anger in this book. I think... yeah, they've counted them up for their class. So this is the textbook. We do this in relation to our teacher because having anger with our teacher is really, really negative karma. But of course, if you think you're being criticized and so forth and so forth and so forth, it's hard for it not to come up. And so we work with it. That's the training. And we recognize that it is a result of our own past actions. We really try to look closely at what is our part here? What is our role in having, even invited this kind of comment that's so upsetting to us? And to the best of our ability, then we find a way to apologize and make amends. Now we can go on and on about that topic, but the thing that goes also then from the teacher is as we begin to respect the teacher in that way, we also begin to respect the elders and other community members. We can extend that. So then we recognize that each person wants to be happy as much as we do. And when we look at our fellow community members, recognizing that each person wants to be happy and is hindered by the weight of afflictions and karma, just like we are, that is training. When we examine our own minds for our own faults and seek to remedy them, that is training. When we can mind our own business about other people's faults, that is training. And when we sincerely look for the good qualities in our fellow community members, remembering their Buddha potential and recalling our shared aspiration to practice Buddha's teachings to become fully awakened in order to liberate all beings from suffering, that is training. When we genuinely practice to see the person that bugs us the most as our supreme teacher, holding that person with the same regard that we hold our spiritual mentor. cultivating respect and gratitude and seeking to understand and relieve that person's dukkha. That is training. That is why we live in community. That is why we live with our teacher. And of course, again, we can choose to do this or not. When we realize that training takes place within our own mind, this is training.